white progressives cause the most daily harm.
Wake your punk ass up. Warrior class, zoo, stand up. Warrior class, zoo, rise up. Warrior class, zoo, speak up. Warrior class, zoo, show up. Warrior class, zoo, smoke 'em out. Peace, blessings, and black power. It's Amaja way to coming to you black at it again. Go ahead and put me in your Bluetooth. Go ahead and put me in your headphones. Go ahead and put me on your regular listening apparatus. As always, I don't want you to look at it because this is not a visual. This is pretty much audio. So keep your hands free. Continue on with your daily chores around the house or exercise. And pull up a chair and let's see if we can learn a few things.
You know, in White Fragility, I set out to establish that systemic racism exists. It's in the framework of white supremacy. It shapes all of our lives. And, you know, if we can't open to that conversation, we can't have the conversation.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm, cause the most daily harm, cause the most daily harm across race. White progressives cause the most daily harm across race.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
In the South, you had visible villains, cattle prods, police dogs. But in the North, you don't have those visible villains. Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible? Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible? Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible? Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible?
Well, that's exactly right, and this is what I was saying when I said it's harder to see a target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always, on the whole, by the brutality of our opponent. It isn't the same way in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm. Every inch of black progress is met with white rage. Every inch of black progress is met with white rage. Every inch of black progress is met with white rage.
Every inch of black progress is met with white rage.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm. And we saw what happened during the summer of 2020. And my book was only one piece, but it was an explanation or an entry point for a lot of white people that really was useful. And then we see where we are now.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. Is the most dangerous thing. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox. And a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
in this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issues, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberal against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal, and white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro. The white liberal is able to use the Negro. The white liberal is able to use the Negro. The white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through trick or tokenism, false promises of integration and civil rights. In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader. The white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader. The white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gain, token progress, token recognition, token gain, token progress, token recognition, token gain, token progress. In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part, and the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet it is this small minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president. If who will be the next president can be influenced by 3 million Negro voters, it is easy to see why the presidential candidates of both political parties put on such a false show with the Civil Rights Bill and promises of integration. They must impress the 3 million voting Negroes who are the actual integration seekers. And if so much fuss is made over these 3 million integration seekers, what would the presidential candidates have to do to appease the 8 million non-voting Negro if they ever decided to become politically active? They hold the balance of power. Non-voting Negro, if they ever decided to become politically active, they hold the balance of power. Non-voting Negro, if they ever decided to become politically active, they hold the balance of power. Who are the 8 million non-voting Negroes? What do they want? And why don't they vote? The 3 million Negro voters are the so-called middle-class Negroes, or high-class Negroes, or uppity Negroes, who are referred to by the late Howard University sociology professor E. Franklin Frazier as the black bourgeoisie, who have been educated to think as patriotic individualists with no racial pride whatsoever, who believe in and look forward to the future integrated, intermarried society that is constantly being promised to them by the Negro politician. And therefore, this integration-minded 3 million minority remain an active part of the white-controlled political parties. But it must never be overlooked that these 3 million Negro integration seekers are only a small minority of the 11 million qualified Negro voters. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. The 8 million non-voting Negroes are the majority, the downtrodden black masses. They have refused to vote. They have refused to vote. They have refused to vote. They've refused to take a part in politics because they reject the Uncle Tom approach of the clergy politician leadership that has been handpicked for the so-called Negroes by the white man himself. This clergy politician leadership does not speak for the Negro majority, does not speak for the Negro majority, does not speak for the Negro majority, does not speak for the Negro majority. They don't speak for the black masses. They speak for the black bourgeoisie. The brainwashed, white-minded, middle-class minority. 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 Who, because they are ashamed of their race, because they are ashamed of being black, and don't want to be identified with black, they are seeking to lose this black identity by mixing and mingling and intermarrying and integrating with the white society. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The race problem cannot be solved by listening to the white-minded, brainwashed minority. The white man must try to learn what the black majority want. The president would be wise to try and learn what the black masses want. And the only way to find this out is by listening to the man who speaks for the black masses. If the 3 million middle-class Negroes are casting their ballots for integration and intermarriage, what do the non-voting black masses who are in the majority want? Find out what the black masses want, and then perhaps America's grave race problem can be solved.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
White liberals who have posed as our friends, white liberals who have been eager to point out what the white man in the South has been doing to us, while they themselves here in the North are doing the same thing. They have been making a great fuss over the South, only to blind us to what is happening here in the North. And now that the eyes of America's 20 million blacks can easily see that this white fox here in the North is even more cruel and vicious than the white wolf in the South. The southern wolves always let you know where you stand, but these northern foxes pose as white liberals. They pose as your friend, pose as your benefactor, pose as your employer. They pose as your landlord. They pose as the neighborhood merchant. They pose as your lawyer trying to help. They infiltrate all your organizations, and in this manner, by joining you, they strangle your militant efforts toward freedom, toward justice, and toward equality. They use integration for infiltration. 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 They use integration for infiltration.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm. I'm a part of the problem. Yeah. And if I may, Resmaa, I'm writing about nice racism. Now, this is a moment when, white nationalism is on the rise. Mm-hmm. Recruitment among young white male youth is, accelerated. Mm-hmm. We literally have laws on the books that say you cannot say that racism's real.
That's right.
That's what the whole CRT thing is about.
That's exactly
You cannot say that racism is real. That's what the whole CRT thing is about.
That's exactly
You cannot say that racism is real.
That's exactly
You cannot say that racism is real.
That's exactly
You cannot say that racism is real.
That's exactly
You cannot say that racism is real.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm. We have voter suppression. And yet I'm writing about nice racists like me that wouldn't be agreeing with any of that. And I'd love to know your thoughts when I say that I think well-intended, open-minded, justice-loving white folks like me are actually the ones that cause the most daily harm.
Yeah.
What would you say to that as a black man?
I would say you're absolutely right. 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 I would say you're absolutely right.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
I think something that happened with your book that also started to begin to happen with my book was the idea that once you read it, then you were absolved from doing it. And I think what happens is that people read books like My Grandmother's Hands or White Fragility, and especially white folks will read it and read that stuff and organize all different types of book clubs and meetings to talk about it and debate about it, but are not going to do anything. They're simply going to acquire knowledge, cognitive knowledge, And when you talk about in the book that you have to do something, you literally that it is not about just being quote unquote woke. It is about having some sense of what's going on and then figuring out as white people how to begin to apply what it is that you've learned, not just use it to kind of cudgel other white people. The idea of talking about it from the kind of progressive side, I think is really important, because I think one of the things that happens with progressive is that they kind of disidentify or extricate themselves from the bad white people, as if racism is only about transaction. And what we know is that it is not. It is structural and it is philosophical. It lives and breathes inside of you because you have been advantaged by a system that says that the white body is the standard and has deemed itself the standard of humanness. And so certain people benefited from that mathematical equation. People continue to benefit and are advantaged by that mathematical equation. And it doesn't just go away because you're nice or kind.
Yeah, and that's another point I'm trying to make, is that niceness doesn't indicate the absence of racism. Niceness doesn't indicate the absence of racism. Niceness doesn't indicate the absence of racism. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, a culture of niceness protects systemic racism. I get this image of like this thick blanket or fog laying over it, because a culture of niceness tends to be a passive aggressive, conflict avoidant culture. Yep. It's a culture that not conscious. None of this has to be conscious. It doesn't matter.
Right. That's right.
But it assumes the white experience is a universal experience.
That's right.
So I feel comfortable here. Everybody's friendly here. Therefore, you must be comfortable and you must experience us as friendly. And my smile must signal to you, does it not, that I'm not racist? Right. Now, if you don't smile back, that changes pretty quick. Yep. You know, in some ways, I remember a friend of mine, a Black woman, coming home from Whole Foods saying, "My God, it's exhausting to go shopping at Whole Foods." The over smiling, right?
That's right.
And she, now some people may be listening and saying, "Well, what's wrong with smiling, right? Mm-hmm. Or what's wrong with niceness?" So don't mishear me. I'm all for niceness.
Right. Right.
It's the idea that niceness indicates the absence of racism. It's the idea that niceness indicates the absence of racism. It's the idea that niceness indicates the absence of racism. It's the idea that niceness indicates the absence of racism. Yeah. And there's a difference between, you know, smiling when you pass someone in the grocery store, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, and the kind of smile that is asking for validation and approval. Yeah. I need to convey to you that I'm not racist, and I need you to convey back to me that you see that I'm not racist. Yep. And that's how all of that landed on her. It wasn't just natural. Mm-hmm. There's almost, and I can say as a white person, almost an urgency.
Yeah.
That I telegraph to you my lack of racism. And I opened the book with a just cringe-inducing story of needing, feeling very urgent to establish to a couple of Black folks that I wasn't racist. And how did I do it? Told them how racist my family was. Yeah. Repeated every joke and every comment. Yeah. Followed by, "Can you believe they said that? Yeah. Can you believe they thought that?" And I thought, you know, here's what I'm showing you. I see that that's racist. I would never say that thing that just came out of my mouth.
That you just said. That's right.
And, you know, I recognize that I actually subjected them to racism all evening. And yet in my head, I went home thinking I was down and that they knew that I was down. And that's another piece around white progressiveness.
Somebody told me to deliver this message.
White progressives cause the most daily harm.
So I want to go ahead and give you my interpretation of what you heard, my breakdown, the way I'm thinking of it as an individual separate from the herd. Of course, I made some notes. Some of them are accurate, some of them are just winging it. And at the end of the day, I need you, the listening audience, to be better aware how to listen That's why it's very important that you actually take the time to learn what people are saying. Take the time to break down what people are saying. Take the time to completely understand what people are saying. In the old days, it was communication is key. Communication is key. Communication is key. They kept beating you in the head with the concept of communicating because people aren't mind readers. And I understand that, and that's valid. There's no getting around that. But the thing that we later found out is that even though we were communicating husbands, wives, we were communicating brothers and sisters, we were communicating is we didn't quite understand what the other one was saying. So many of you got that in a conversation. You'll be in a conversation with someone and you'll be talking blah 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 blah, and then you'll go, nah, I mean, and that person will go, yeah, or do you know what I'm saying? That person will go, I do. Well, reality, they don't, but they've learned how to do certain things in the midst of a conversation to continue the conversation or to speed the conversation up, and hopefully they'll probably understand it as you give a closing statement, closing argument, or conclusion of whatever it was you were sitting there saying. And you're finding out that they still don't understand. One of the things I like about the social media and all these media platforms is the comment section. The comment section is pretty much where you're going to find a lot of truths, people truths. People can't argue with fact. So in the beginning, you heard a lot of people say, well, not all of us black women are full of shit. Not all of us. Now you're hearing people double back and say, well, we already know not all, but we're speaking the general. And when you speak, you have to speak in two ways, either specificities or in generalities. And on average, we speak in generalities. But when you didn't know how to communicate and you didn't know how to, get your point across, people will try to say that you're lumping us all in one thing, and it really isn't that, but those are defense mechanisms. So when I'm coming to you, I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to be very clear, not only on Amaja's mindset, I'm also trying to get you to understand you have to, in your daily lives, you have to slow the conversation down so that you can understand every aspect of the person's thoughts, actions, and speech. Because if you don't, they're going to pull a fast one on you. Because you in your spare time, you're not doing the work. In your spare time, once the house repairs are finished, or while you're taking a break, once the car repairs are finished, or while you're taking a break, in between whatever it is that you're doing, you have to do the work. You have to do your homework. Let me go ahead and show you some of the issues in which I had an issue with the individuals talking, because I keep saying a lot of people do a lot of coon talking over the basic gist of the message, and I don't think a lot of the audience members understand where it switched, where the fork in the road came. On this one, I'm going to say at time marker 18, 19, 20, 18 minutes, 19 seconds, and 20 milliseconds, she admitted that she hears in her family some of the racial overtones that her families were speaking whenever it was family time or just in conversation. I need to be very clear, and I hope you guys are understanding that when she goes in her circles and she says that it doesn't get misconstrued or misinterpreted as stop doing it. Because that's a signal that she just signaled. That is a smoke signal that she just sent out. Progressives and liberals, I hear that you all are racist at the dinner table, private conversations, blah, 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 whenever you think black folks aren't around. And when you do what she just did, when she sort of kind of low-key says, I hear it, so I recognize it, and now she's writing a book about saying, I hear the racist things we say in private. I'm going to write a book to signal the black folks that we are acknowledging that some white folks are saying racist things in private. And that's a signal to black folks that I'm trying to change the narrative. What's that going to do to those that want to hide is it's going to tell them not to speak around other white folks. It's going to tell them not to speak around suspected race traitors. It's going to tell them to defend themselves. Think of it like this. Me Too, the Me Too movement. I told many of you that Me Too movement was a bad idea. I explained to you it was a bad idea because what it does to people that are not trying to fix things, what it does to people who are not trying to do better, what it does is it causes them to hide. So their mindset stays the same. Their in desire remains the same. It's just that when you expose them, they change the process of how to acquire it. The Me Too movement were a bunch of women who were being sexually exploited by a bunch of men of power. And when those women did what they did, they exposed those men of power and their behavioral practices. Those men of power, in a nutshell, are still in power. They just changed the way in which they conduct themselves. They didn't stop. They didn't get better. They just changed the way they conduct themselves. So I said you shouldn't do that. Because I would say get out of it altogether. That way, if you don't want to be a part of that, just remove yourself from the equation. But if you go out here and you tell these people, I see how you've been moving, I know how you've been moving, I hear how you talk, the people aren't going to stop. They're just going to hide better. And at the end, you're not going to have access, and you're going to make it more difficult for others to have access because you expose their hand. And I'm telling you, I'm the way my mind thinks is that way. When you come out of the jungle, when you grow up in the jungle, you can lose the jungle traits because you want to lose the jungle traits. I don't want to lose the jungle traits. I'm glad I grew up in the jungle because it's allowing me to navigate life better. I can navigate the civilian world, I can navigate the zoo, and I can navigate the jungle. But I can only navigate both because I've already learned the jungle. And a lot of you have not learned the jungle. And a lot of you don't live in the jungle. So therefore, you're at a disadvantage. You're at a disadvantage in the jungle, and you're also at a disadvantage in the zoo. The zoo is pretty much your middle class civilian lifestyle. The jungle is the street. It's just a little reference. I'm glad it is what it is, and I stay close to the jungle, stay into the jungle, because that's my comfort zone. When I go out there in rural America, when I go out to the middle class America, it's a lot of uppity folks, a lot of uppity minded people, a lot of clueless people. It's almost like Walking Dead when they went into Alexandria. When they went into Alexandria, they were having a good old time. They were boarded up and they were pretty much, they had the little security detail, but for the most part, they were too lax. And when Rick came, Michonne came, when that squad came, they realized it's a nice place. We can make it better. Well, how can we make it better? You guys are living in a fantasy. We see that you boarded up the walls. We see that you did some reinforcements. We recognize that you got a security detail, but you guys are lax. You guys are too lax. And if you don't take care of these weak points, outsiders are going to expose you and take all that you have. Well, this is the way I think. I look at every situation, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the in-betweens, and realize it's weak. It could be better if you focus on the weak points as much as you focus on the good, the strong points. Focus on the good as much as the bad. That way you can have a 360-degree perimeter of defense. And for the most part, our people, we do not have a 360-degree of defense. We're winging it. We're winging it because we're not sitting down at the table and talking to everyone. You must learn everything about everything in order to protect yourself the absolute best. And if you are an individual that don't have these type characteristics or character traits, you need to couple with someone, you need to pair off with someone that can pick up where you're slacking, and you can do the same for someone else, and then the next thing you know, the entire group is strong because everybody is contributing on equal level. One of the things that you guys are doing is just not coming to class. When she did that, she did throw a dog whistle to her community. And one of the things you cannot do is you cannot exercise the instrument of censorship. You should always allow human beings to speak their minds, to speak their truths. And you need to learn when to challenge their difference. But you don't challenge them all of the time just because it's not true. You don't challenge it every time just because it doesn't match the definition. You wait and you try to figure out why that person spoke what they spoke. And in the proper amount of time, then you react. But when these people speak ill or speak a lie, or speak a falsity, you don't pounce on them immediately. That's going to cause them to recoil. That's going to cause them to retract. That's going to cause them to hide. Oh, that ain't what I meant. What I meant to say was, well, you took it out of it. No, that you're going to cause them to do that, and you can't afford that, because what you only need to worry about is whether or not this person is a Judas. Don't get hung up on all these things. You have to allow people to be what they are. Only thing you need to do is focus on how to deal and handle that individual. If that individual is a snake, you have to allow a snake to be a snake. You only need to worry about what does a snake eat, what are the snake's motivations, what inspires the snake, where does snakes usually typically hide, what is the life expectancy of a snake, and then how to discard or throw away a snake. That's all you need to know. You do not need to expose that snake, and you do not need to repel that snake. Let that snake come around you. Let that snake act like nothing's changed, nothing's wrong, nothing's different. Learn. And then when you get the proper information and when you get the proper detail, then you get rid of the snake. And you do not have to be disrespectful. Just stop associating with them. So in a nutshell, when I'm trying to wrap this up, there are a lot of things our people were getting wrong when it comes to politics. There's a lot of things our people were getting wrong when it comes to living in general. There's a lot of things that the boomers you caused. Now I need to be clear. I know 100% you didn't cause it. You didn't create it. So we're not blaming you like as if you invented it. We're not blaming you in that direction. We are blaming you because when it was your time to take up the mantle, when it was your time to do the job, you chose not to. And like you heard in the video, that man said, is it harder to get people aroused and directed at something that's not visible? Martin Luther King. And the man said, yeah. Well, the reason why it's harder for you guys to be able to react to that is because, one, in a nutshell, you're more complacent, you're more satisfied with racism as long as they're not busting you upside your head. So it's not that you don't really see it. It's not really an issue. If they stay over there and I can go to the restaurants and I can do this and I can go to the pool country club, in you all's minds, that is where they defeated you. They defeated you in integration. And you all want to be a part of the white world. Not necessarily be white. You want to be a part of the white world. Well, that's colonization. That is a colonized mind. So if you have that mindset, it would be better to live in the suburbs. It'd be better to live with the white folks. It'd be better to live in a rural area. It'd be better if my kid went to a predominantly white school. It'd be better if the teachers were predominantly white. It'd be better if you graduated from a white school. If you are under that mindset that thinks white is right, then that basically means you have a colonized mind. It doesn't mean that you are a racist. It means you are going to, for the most part, not an absolute, this is an indicator, for the most part, vote in favor of all things white. That's education, that's politics, that's economics, labor, that's the whole gambit. Entertainment. Because your mindset is it's better over there. What are their interests? And if their interests are A, B, C, and D, then I need to make my interest A, B, C, and D. Even though you may not go over there and live with them, you're thinking that their thought, their process, their way of living is better, so therefore you want the same results for yourself. Unfortunately, it ain't happening because it doesn't work that way. They are voting for what is in their best individual as a race. What's best for them as a tribe, what's best for them economically, what's best for them for future generations. You are not voting for what's in your best interest. You are voting for what's in their best interest. So this is why Martin, Malcolm were explaining to you, this is where liberals cause the greatest damage, because they're nice. And since they appear nice, you, the victim of racism, white supremacy, don't see or are unable to see the actual harm and detriment. Now, these two men said this back in the 60s, back in the 50s and the 60s. This lady, Dr. DiAngelo, she's now saying it in 2020, 2021. That's a 56, 60-year gap for someone to do the studies, for someone to do the acknowledgments and understand that things really haven't changed. The racism that was in the 60s, all it did is just hide better. Now you're dealing with the same racism in 2021, 60-something years later, because the children of the civil rights generation, the children of the black liberation movement, they're now the boomers. They are your boomers, but they're now your senior citizens. And the senior citizens have the same mindset. They're always going to vote in the best interest of white folks. You guys were wrong. You were wrong 50 years ago, and you're wrong now. And more people are coming under the mindset, you all should have fought like Malcolm. But let me explain it to you. Those same people that say that you should have fought like Malcolm, they're wrong too. Because you're not fighting like Malcolm now. Here it is, your opportunity to fight like Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson is training you how to get in there and throw all your power you can muster in that one hook. Body shot. Two hit. Two to the body, pop, 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 and then work yourself up to the top. Bang, bang. Work that body. Work yourself to the top. Pop, pop. Mike Tyson is teaching you all that. But you're choosing not to pick it up. You're choosing not to do it. You're choosing not to pick it up. You're choosing not to do it because you understand what it requires, and it requires work. The number one thing it requires is stop saying that black men ain't shit. The second thing that it requires is to stop attacking the women. The third thing that it requires is you're gonna have to stick with your own kind. That's intimately, that's argumentatively. You're going to have to stick with your own kind. That also means it'd be in your best interest to get with a black person, give birth to another black child, and then teach your children all things black. Yes, we're living in a modern world, but you still have to teach them the basics, the genesis, the blueprint. The blueprint is, this is what we did and this is who we are. Yeah, these are our experiences, but our experiences don't necessarily define us or who we are. That's just what we've been through. What defines us as who we are is how we move forward, remembering where we come from. I'm not ashamed that I was a slave. I'm not ashamed that I was molested or raped. I'm not ashamed that my kids were sold off. I'm not ashamed of that. That inspires me to fight back. That inspires me to love. That inspires me to look at a dark-skinned, brown-skinned, light-skinned, light, bright, highly light-skinned black female. It inspires me to love her something awful. And I want to protect her. And I want to raise her up. And I want to do this. And I want to do that. I want her to know I move for her. But at the same time, if I see her as a threat or a liability, I ain't fucking with her. I'm not gonna go over there and save her. Yo, sis, I told you this and I told you that, and we all said that dude was this and that dude was that. So why are you over there? I don't know. It's just something about him that makes me alright. Delete that alone, because you are a liability. When I see black men go through whatever it is that they're going through, they got internal issues. They don't want to lose the goddamn weight. All you got to do is watch what you're eating, and you don't have to go to the doctors. Monitor what you're eating. Stop eating whatever you're eating. Remember, we didn't have all these sicknesses when we were hungry, when we were poor, when we was on a plantation, when we was in the concentration camps. We didn't have all these sicknesses. We're having all these sicknesses now. We're overindulging and we're overeating poisonous foods. You got inmates lasting longer than we are, and we were supposed to have a better selection of food to eat. It's just too much. You got high blood pressure, you got diabetes. They've given you the studies of how to counteract the negative side effects. In Black America, you're not doing it. When I see the black men go through whatever they go through, I know why they're going through whatever it is they go through. And it starts from childhood trauma. It starts from racism, white supremacy, mimicked or duplicated into the family. So then you get family trauma. But we are here to explain to you, we all got it. It's that these are the ways in which you overcome it. The first way you overcome it is you speak on it. Say it out loud. The second way you overcome it is you get with individuals that are going through the same thing, but they can reinforce you. Nah, bro, it's just like with anything else. You got Alcoholics Anonymous. When you're feeling that monkey's on your back, you gotta call your sponsor. And that sponsor is just gonna talk to you. When that sponsor talks to you about an hour later, you don't have that monkey on your back. It's the same. But you guys are going at it alone, and this is why you're failing. You need to get around other men, because we love each other. We build each other. Nobody makes us feel like each other. We feel safer around other men. We don't feel as safe around our women because we know our women are goddamn near treacherous. So we can't express certain things to them. They say certain things that are triggering. It's like, why did you say that? Why are you saying it? How are you saying it like that? Well, where did you get that from? Well, why? Well, how? How much longer do I got to deal with this? But we can get around other men and woo-saw a little bit. I went on a little bit more because I'm trying to bring this thing into a better focus. Liberals, progressives, Democrats, Republicans, I don't care what name, what banner you put them on. They are all moving in the best interests of themselves. And the difficulty that Black America is having is you've all chosen a certain form of escapism. Intersectionality, that's escapism. Intersexuality, that's escapism. Black feminism, that's escapism. Christianity, that's escapism. Islam, Nation of Islam, that's an escapism. The NOI or the FOI, that's Muslims, that's a form of escapism. Capitalists, a form of escapism. Drug dealers, a form of escapism. Gangbangers, gangs, a form of escapism. You all have chosen a form of escapism. And what that is, a way in which you, the individual, can justify why you're not in the fight. Well, I am fighting, but I choose to fight it this way. Wrong. Well, I am fighting. I choose to fight that way. Wrong. Well, I am fighting. I choose to fight. You're wrong. And the evidence is showing you that you're wrong. And instead of you getting with the men that think like me or the women that think like me, you all don't come to us. You push us away. Well, do we all got to address the problem same? In a nutshell, yes. It's just that we're individuals, so we do it a different way. Same thing. You can climb a fire hydrant. You can climb a fire ladder multiple ways as long as you get to the top. As long as you on that specific ladder, as long as you go up to the top. You can climb a rope multiple ways as long as you climb that rope and you get to the top. You guys are climbing ropes different ways and you're not getting to the top. You are climbing different ropes. You are climbing a cotton rope. You're climbing a fiberglass rope. You're climbing a fiber optic rope. You're climbing fire retardant rope. You're climbing different types of ropes. But none of those ropes take you to the top. Do they go up? Yes, they go up. But they do not take you to the top. You're climbing an aluminum ladder. Doesn't take you to the top. You're climbing a fiberglass ladder. It doesn't take you to the top. You're climbing a wooden ladder. And it doesn't take you to the top. They all go up, but they don't take you to the top. And what I am telling you is you have to climb the exact same ladder. Because the exact same one ladder is what's taking you to the top. The only difference is you need to position each ladder the same ladder. You need to make multiple ladders of the same ladder. So that means 30 steel ladders, all of them are 20 feet tall. Then you take 30 steel ladders that are 20 feet tall and you position them at different points of the structure. Then you climb that and then y'all go top. It's the same thing as storming the castle. You cannot storm the castle with different height ladders, too tall, too short, different constructions of ladders. Some are built, with stones, some are built with hay, some are built with whatever. They all have their own weak points. They all have their own issues. You build that steel ladder that's 20 foot tall on a 18 foot or 19 foot castle wall and you position it around the castle, you have a better chance of breaching the castle walls. But you guys are doing other things, and that's a character flaw. That's fear. You're choosing to go the other way because you are afraid. And what I'm telling you is you got to get on the same page. When it's time to vote in this next election, you need to always and only vote in the best interest of black people, not of people of color, not the Black Brown Coalition, not African, what is that thing called? Pan-Africanism, not sexuality, not ageism, not classism. You need to vote what is always going to be in the best interest of black people and not for black people now. You need to always vote for what is in the best interest of black people in the years and decades to come. Do the work now so that 10 years from now, that's not an issue. Don't worry about what's going on now, and then 10 years, you have to worry about another issue. Worry about what's going on in another 10 years so you can address that now, so in another 10 years, it's not an issue. And then in that 10th year, when it's time to vote, you're voting for another 10 years, grace period. You guys are voting for the here and now, and that's where you're failing. Warrior class, Zoo, rise up. Warrior class, Zoo, show up. Warrior class, Zoo, speak up. Warrior class, Zoo, smoke 'em out. Black power.
In this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Fair Use Act disclaimer. This site is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research.